Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome back for another video. Today, one of my clanmates has kindly lent me his account and asked if I can do a gear cleanse. Now, I am one of those weird people that genuinely enjoys doing a gear cleanse. I appreciate that it's not for everyone and most people find it just awful and laborious. We have a hell of a lot of gear, 1460 bits to go through. So it's going to take a little while. Sit back, enjoy. I know it's not overly exciting, but hopefully you'll pick up some tips along the way. And if there's one thing that I'm just going to hammer home like I do in all of my videos about gear, all we're actually ever looking for in this game is synergy. But guys, before we move ahead, don't forget there will be a promo link. It's going to be written in the pinned comment as well as the description of this video. If you're looking to maybe try the free-to-play life, maybe you just want to recommend Raid to a friend, it's going to get you off to a solid head start with the likes of Elenaril, Fayne, Uugo and Tagoar as you level up your account. And if you want that, just follow these instructions. You'll want to log out of Plarium Play on your PC and uninstall the game. Click the link in the description, register with a brand new email address, launch Raid, complete your tutorial, go to your inbox and claim your first free champion. Like I say, this is a good one, you don't want to miss it, just click below and get started today. Gear cleansing. Right, I usually like to start with the flat stat trick where you just select your bottom row of gear, you go to primary stats and you click HP, attack and defense, not the percentages, and there's actually quite a lot in there, so nice and easy. Now I'm not just going to delete all of this because as you can see there are some quite rare sets in here. Anything below probably impulse is worth keeping in case we can rework it later, so we're going to come back to that, but we're going to go from the top right down to the bottom and we're going to get rid of all this flat stat nastiness because this top set stuff is just not worth your resources. Even if it's already leveled up to 16, it doesn't always mean it's good. Even if it's got triple rolls, all of that, it's just wasted space, and what we really want is silver. And that has just reminded me, we are going to start this video with 34.5 million silver. I'm going to try and remember that moving forward. Let's make this guy some silver. Let's clean up his account. Okay, we've done the initial sweep. We've got through any kind of gear that had flat stats that I think, you know, there was no redemption for. When it comes to looking at your account from an endgame kind of perspective, when you scroll down, you should see a lot less gear in these top sort of legacy sets. That doesn't mean bin it just because it's not in one of the nice fancy shiny new sets. Focus on things that have very good synergy, like this is a bit of gear that kind of doesn't. Crit damage with attack is very good. With a double accuracy, it kind of doesn't really have a purpose and it will end up just sitting in your vault forever. It's the kind of same with this. Anything spread stat, no good. When it comes to legacy sets, what I tend to do is just keep really good gear. Like this is a good bit of gear. Double speed, great. Accuracy, great. Crit rate, very cool. Flat HP, you know, you can't always have 4 amazing stats on a bit of gear. That is a solid bit of gear. What it also means is whenever it comes to just, you know, you need to put a build together to get through a cursed city stage or whatever, maybe you just need to get something kind of niche done. If you've only got like good gear from these legacy sets, then you can just throw it on and you're kind of always going to build with some sort of success. So I'm just going to whittle down these kind of old legacy sets. Anything that's not really useful in today's meta, like I'm going to be not so harsh when it comes to cursed because obviously Hydra, it has a place there, but things like Frost, we're just going to keep god tier sort of gear, you know, something that ideally has at least 3 very strong stats on it, anything that's got 4 on it. So yeah, I'm going to go through that now. Let's see what we can get. And we're at 1,338 bits of gear. So this bit that I do now is going to be the kind of longest part of the gear cleanse because I just want to make sure we're not deleting anything that might have a use later. Speed boots, let's forget about the set. At the end of the day, it's a legendary pair of boots. We've got defense on the ascension. We've got HP percentage, double roll. We've got accuracy, cool, some flat defense, that's fine, and a bit of resistance. Proper tank boots, very cool. Keep stuff like that. Doesn't matter what set it is, that's a solid spread. That is good synergy. Here's a set you can be quite ruthless with, and that's Cruel, and actually the same goes for Immortal. You get it every day from doing the clan boss. You can actually be, you know, pretty harsh when it comes to going through. So I'm not going to treat it like I would anything else. I'm just going to hunt for like the best stats for this particular set. Attack 15% ignores 5% of enemy defense. So we're going to focus literally speed, crit rate. If we can get some attack on it, that's even better. But this is a speed and crit rate set. And what we really want are things like crit damage gloves and, you know, attack chest with crit rate on it and some speed. Some boots that have, you know, speed as the main stat with attack, crit rate and crit damage as the substats would be like the best. Or maybe attack as the main stat on the boots and get a triple roll in speed. Anything like that. So I'm going to be a little bit more harsh with something like this. Onto something like Immortal for a late/endgame account. If we think about what this set is doing, it's basically giving us HP. Who do we want to have HP? It's going to be things like healers, revivers, control champions. All of those things need to be going incredibly fast. So again, because this is a set you just get given every day, I'm actually going to delete anything that doesn't have speed on it. Even if it's got, you know, a triple roll into something, it's 2025, everything's only going to get faster. And you're not going to kind of match those speeds unless you're keeping pretty much anything that's a double speed and above. So we're going to be really brutal with this. I'm also not going to keep 5-star. Again, this account is late game. We're not going to get enough stats from rolls just for gear like this. I would be different with Merciless and, you know, really valuable sets. But something like this, you don't need 5-star. You just need 6-star with a ton of speed and ideally a ton of HP. Something like this is the perfect example of good synergy. In fact, this is arguably the best bit of gear I've seen on the account so far. You know, it's Immortal set, but you know, it doesn't even matter about the set, but Immortal set is 15% HP, heals by 3% every turn. Like I say, this is going to be going on like healing and support based champions. And what are they ever going to need? Speed, HP, defense, resistance. That is 4 absolutely amazing stats. That is a solid bit of gear. Another one of probably the easiest sets to cleanse in this game. So I think the easiest set is speed. And the simple rule for that is if you've got a piece of speed gear and it doesn't have speed on it, put it in the bin. You'd rather have the silver than the wasted space. The same actually goes for divine speed. I would even say the same applies to one of the newer sets, Supersonic. They're sets designed to go fast. You cannot rely on the 12% set bonus. You just have to rely on stacking like triple and quad rolls. So this is another set that you do get quite often, but we're going to be really harsh with stuff like this. If you want a champion going at 300 speed, you got to keep triples. It's just sadly how it goes. Something like Resilience, again, really easy. You get it just from essentially doing faction wars and crafting the materials. It's super easy to get, a bit like Perception. It's another one we can afford to be very brutal when it comes to clearing it. What would you want on a Resilience set? Well, it says it right there. You want HP and defense, but speed is always the priority. Okay, let's talk about Perception, because I truly believe that this is the best set in the entire game. Now, it's not going to be as good at ignoring defense as something like Merciless, but this is essentially free gear. If you just do faction wars every day, you grind arena for Magisteel, which you'll just get by completing, you know, classic arena battles, you should find yourself in a position to be able to craft a pretty much limitless supply of Perception. This is like the best set for, well, in 2025, there's now a lot of champions that require speed and accuracy. I mean, look, we're doing gear here. We've got Lady Mikage. She needs speed and she needs accuracy, but she puts out a ton of debuffs. You've got like your Fabians, your Armands, Lydia, anyone that does debuffs that you want to use in late game content, you're going to need speed and accuracy. Like I say, it always just kind of says it, you know, what does the set do? You know, look for those stats. Again, I'm only going to really keep anything that's double speed and above. If I could have like a perfect piece of gear out of Perception, it would be triple speed, a roll into accuracy, HP and defense, or maybe crit rate and HP, or just something with a bit more utility. But ultimately, all we're looking for is speed and accuracy. Right, we've got as far as protection so far. Now, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to skip protection, and I'm also going to skip stone skin. these are two sets which are very, very, very useful, sort of depending on what direction you take your account. Protection is the ultimate PvE support-based set. We will come back to it, and he's actually got a lot of it, which is going to allow us to be quite brutal with how we go through it. With Stone Skin, there are many, many applications. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to leave those sets till last, and we will kind of go through it live, and I will do my thought process, because I didn't know what to keep for so long, but now it just makes a little bit more sense. Essentially, now I've deleted a whole bunch of really good stuff off of my account, and I think, why did I do that? But we will come back to that after we've just been through the rest of it. Okay, supersonic set. Like I said, with divine speed and normal speed, this is just a going fast set. So anything that doesn't have speed on it, it goes in the bin. We would rather have the silver. Okay, Merciless, my probably second favorite set in the entire game. Weird set because it technically has two uses. It's a straight up damage dealing machine of a set. You're ignoring the most defense, 35% out of any of the available sets. However, when we look at the 4-piece, we essentially see a refresh type set. Well, we call it reflex in the game. When you do damage, you've got a 30%, that's an incredibly high chance of reducing a skill's cooldown. Very good for an AoE champion. Also very good for your support-based champions. You could go 4-piece Merciless, 4-piece Reflex, and then you've just got so much chance of actually reducing your cooldowns. So when it comes to what to look for on a set like this, it's kind of two paths. We've got the kind of support style, things like speed, accuracy, HP. That's maybe one way of looking at it. We've obviously got the DPS side, which is going to be sort of crit rate, crit damage, speed. It's a little bit more fiddly to go through a set like this, but we're just going to kind of keep those two ideas and those two avenues in mind. I'm not going to delete anywhere near as much of this stuff because it is very precious stuff. I'm kind of not going to touch Feral. It's so rare, obviously, because you only really get it from siege victories. Now, we are in a clan that gets a decent amount of siege victories, but I don't know, you might want this stuff for later, but, you know, here's what I would look for. At the end of the day, it is essentially a really powerful equivalent of a perception set, sort of mixed with an immunity set, combined with, like, Feral's passive. It's a very powerful set. Obviously, you want to be aiming for 9 pieces where you can, but when you go through it, you just really want speed and accuracy. Like this is what you're looking for. You're going to use Feral in things like Chimera, other clan boss things. So speed, accuracy, resistance, HP, defense. It's not so much a damage dealing set. You wouldn't chuck a 9-piece on a DPS because you'd rather have a 4 or a 6-piece sort of ignore defense style set. When it comes to going through it, just kind of look for the stats that it's already showing you. Treat it like perception, aim for double and triple rolls with speed. You're not really looking for crit rate, crit damage. You're just kind of looking for, yeah, accuracy, speed. That should be the priority. But I'm going to not touch this set. This guy's account, he's actually like the kind of siege leader in our clan, and I wouldn't want to step on those toes. That'll get me in a whole bunch of trouble. So we're leaving Feral, but that's what I would look for. Literally onto the last couple of bits now. Pinpoint is basically the same thing as Feral in terms of what you're looking for. You're looking for speed and accuracy. This goes on debuffers that you don't want to get sheeped. I don't think a 9-piece is overly valuable for it. Are you going to be alive long enough in Arena to go through 4 intercept stacks? Probably not. A 4 set and maybe a 6 set, maybe. So again, speed, resistance, accuracy, just anything to live through the arena. So that kind of concludes the first sweep that we've been through. I'm leaving these boots because if I was him, I would actually rework them and maybe you might get speed. Onto the chronophage, flat stats no good, defense boots without speed no good. Now the last thing I said I was going to go through is protection and stone skin. So just to make this very, very brief, put protection on champions that are going to be the kind of lead support in my PvE and sometimes PvP teams. So, you know, Duchess in a 9-piece protection, someone that puts out buffs that protects your team will naturally, because of the 9-piece set, be ramping up damage per buff placed by said champion. Sorry, it's a bit cumbersome. Basically, the more buffs that the wearer puts out, the more damage your team does. So I would actually treat it like a speed set. If you're doing Chimera on, say, Ultra Nightmare or even like Brutal and Nightmare, you're going to need to be going at least 250 to sort of 330 speed. And again, the only way you're getting there is by double and triple speed rolls. Again, let's think of who's going to wear this. Let's just zoom in on Duchess for a moment. It's a massive support-based champion. They're not going to want crit rate, attack, crit damage, probably not even accuracy. So that kind of just leaves us with speed, HP, defense, resistance. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the big, heavy support-based stats. Also, I've got to say this before I start. It sucks deleting mythical gear, but at the end of the day, if you've got a rare that somehow rolled a double speed and you ended up with HP, resistance, and defense, or you've got a mythical which has no speed but it's got like crit damage, accuracy, resistance, and flat HP, then the rare is going to win every time. Don't get attached to the little red border around the gear, because 9 times out of 10 it means absolutely nothing. And that is it. Look, this is the reality of it. All of this mythical gear, and I've only actually kept 2 pieces. You can't get attached to it. You need good gear. In fact, for this level of account, you need great gear. You've got to kind of let go of the good gear. So I am sorry, mate. I know it's horrible, but I'm deleting your mythicals. I just deleted so much mythical gear. I am sorry, mate, but you know, if it's got to go, it's got to go. That was a lot of, you had a lot of protection gear in there. Right, so you've got a few ways that you can play this. You've got the kind of debuffer, 4-piece stone skin, 4-piece pinpoint. So you're going to be looking for speed, accuracy, stuff like that. Then you've got the kind of DPS path where you could be looking at 4-piece savage, 4-piece stone skin. You're going to then want to look for gear that is crit rate, crit damage, attack percent, speed, things like that. So I would argue it is the hardest set to cleanse. So the best rule of thumb is just keep good gear with good synergy. You don't want to see flat HP with attack percentage, defense percentage, and crit damage. That's no good to anyone. What you want to see is stuff like speed, HP, resistance, or crit damage, attack, speed. It's the hardest one to do, and I'm not going to be anywhere near as harsh with it because it's very, very, very conditional. So I'm literally just going to blitz through this and then we'll call it quits. And, you know, that is another gear cleanse done. I've just looked at the number. We've got it down to 666. This has been quite a savage gear cleanse. I do apologize in advance for when you open up your account and go, where's all my gear gone? But there was just a lot of stuff that wasn't working. And ultimately, why is it in the vault? If we're really, really real with ourselves, why is your gear in the vault? Probably because it's not quite good enough to put on the champion. So I'm just going to whittle through this and then we will close out. Okay, that is it. That is my, major pass has been done. Now there is always room for improvement, and I know we've whittled that gear down something fierce. Like we've got rid of nearly 1,000 bits of gear. That's crazy. Let's have a look at how much silver we have now. Yeah, he's got pretty much 100 mil silver. So we've just made, like 65, 70 mil silver. Very, very, very nice. So yeah, that's been me doing a cleanse. If this is something that you would be interested in, we have different levels of how we would go about doing it. You can always find me in Discord and we can have a chat there. But, if this was my account moving forward, what would I do? I would pick on the bottom row of gear, and let's say we start with boots, find all of my speed boots. So we'll just do that. There's 35 pairs on here, and I would just keep the good ones. And what do I mean by good ones? Just ones with good synergy. Good does not mean legendary, mythical, doesn't mean anything like that. It's just good synergy. I would do the same with chests. I'd think synergy again. HP percent chest, more often than not, this is not going to be for a nuker. So you're going to want things like speed, resistance, more HP, more defense, all of that good stuff. And I would do the same with gloves. I'd pick a primary stat like crit damage, and I would just get rid of anything that didn't align with crit damage. But yeah, that's it. Gear cleansing, never much fun, but it is absolutely necessary. And now you can go forth and grind the heck out of dungeons until you have more gear. But look, we've made a load of silver. We've really, really whittled it down. I don't know if you do use the optimizer on your account. If you do, the optimizer is going to be a lot happier with you than it was before, because the less gear that goes into it, the better. But yeah, I'm the weirdo. I enjoy doing gear cleanses. So thank you so much for watching. If you did, please feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.